Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all keeping very happy and healthy. As I'm going through today's video, there is going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to want to add to the information that I'm already giving, because when it comes to learning tarot or like a language, there's so much stuff still to know on top of the stuff that you teach. Like, you could go on and on into different aspects of the stuff that I'm already discussing, into scenarios, examples. I'm going to be tempted to help you within each step that I'm about to give, but I'm going to try my best to stay back a little bit and keep this quite straightforward and simple to some degree, and let you know that I will dig deeper into some parts and points of this video in a dedicated video in the future, like within its own topic, because there's just so much to discuss, and I want to talk and dive into tarot a little bit more on this channel. I don't think it's uncommon at all that there are so many people who have tarot cards sitting around, or was given a tarot deck once but never used it, bought one years ago when they found an interest in it and never learned or couldn't be bothered to learn or didn't know how to learn, or is a bit overwhelmed by the amount of cards. There are 78 cards to learn in a tarot deck, and not only that, but you have to, well, you don't have to, but a lot of people learn what that card means upside down. So if it comes out of the deck on its head, that's called reversals, and so that basically means you've got to learn 78 more definitions. So there's a lot to learn with tarot, but what I decided to do is, for those people who have dusty decks lying around, you know, that deck that your grandma gave you that you never touched, I want to reach out to you all and be like, look, there is a way we can handle this easily, one step at a time, and in a really fun and enjoyable way. I've come up with a learning method for tarot which will literally be useful for actual tarot noobs, beginners. I'm looking at you. Even if you feel so far from being able to read it, I will get you on your pathway into that hobby that you've always been drawn to and pulled to for one reason or another, but you never really got fully invested. Over time, I've realized these are all the key things that work for me. It's very approachable, it's very easy, and my main fundamental thing is not just by the textbook, not just by life experience, not just by what your very experienced tarot reader friend has told you, not just by media and film, not just by meditating over different tarot definitions, but by the combination of all of those things mashed together. And I believe by doing that, it helps you understand the cards on a more personal level. And that's my biggest advice when going into tarot. You'll become such a better reader when you dive into and live each card of the deck. When you can relate to every card in the deck through experience in your own life and through incorporating it artificially, manually into your life yourself, that's how you truly understand what each card actually means. So I'm going to ask all of you to grab your decks. I know you've probably got one. If you don't have one, this video is probably not for you, but do go out there and go find one. I'm not going to go too far into, you know, where it is best to find a deck or anything like that. Honestly, Google's your friend, and no, you don't have to have somebody buy a deck for you. The one thing I will say though is, please pick a Rider-Waite tarot deck. That might be a bit controversial for some people who don't really like Rider-Waite, but the only reason I will say that is because most books and guides that you will find on the internet will go by the artwork on the cards that are called the Rider-Waite Smith tarot deck. It's just helpful for you to learn using the same language that everyone else is using on the internet and in books and stuff. Like, it's a good starting point, because this is the tarot deck that most people reference when you are trying to learn, so it's just really helpful. There are many versions of it though. One of my favorite decks is, even though it looks very different to the tradish, it's basically the same but modernized, so the girls in it, and it's all female as well, just look like they actually come from this day and age rather than this day and age. So, like most tarot readers, I fully support the daily pull method. So most tarot readers, learners, will pull a card out for themselves every single day. Keep on doing that until they've reached a point where they've got pretty good with realizing what that card will mean for them for the rest of the day. And I think it's good not just to pull a card for yourself to to find out how your day is going to look, but also to help you determine what card you should be studying right now. And I will also say, yes, you can read yourself. That's another common myth. People seem to think that you can't buy your own decks and you can't read for yourself. If that was the case, like, you can just throw 80% of tarot readers out the window, because they all do that and we're all guilty of that. So you can do this wherever, whenever you want, but you need to promise yourself and dedicate yourself to sit down somewhere once a day, maybe in the morning. I do mine in the morning, or once a week. If you're really, really busy, maybe do it once a fortnight, but just sit somewhere, feel your zen, do your whatever you want to do just to get in the zone, and there's no rules. Just feel in your element. Maybe your element is sitting outside in the garden with your dog, or making a cup of tea, sitting amongst your crystals, or in the bath. I don't really care, as long as you feel in the moment. Sit there with your tarot deck and ask for which card it is that you need to study and take advice from today. Or it could be this week, but we're gonna stick to today. And I want you to do this with me now. Everyone who's watching this video, if you've got a deck, sit with it now and ask that question, and then pull your card. And we'll do it sat here together, me and you. What I like to do is just shuffle until one flies out for me. I feel like that works so much better. I feel like my messages come so much more clearer in my head when they pop out. It's almost like the energy's so strong and the card wants to show itself so much that it pops out of your shuffle. There is not a lot of rules when it comes to tarot other than the definitions of the cards. My card flew out. So I've got my card in front of me, and you guys should have your card in front of you, and I want you to take a little look at it. The first thing I want you to bear in mind is nothing is ever unusual or odd or stupid or dumb or weird. When you look at the card, explore and feel the feelings that you get. Accept them, take them on board and enjoy them, and don't shut anything down. Don't disregard your feelings. Like, that's very, very key. And I've actually come up with my very own way to help you guys remember each step of this method, and that is by looking at the words I read tarot. This will help you remember each step. So going by the very first part of this acronym is I, and this goes with what I was saying before. It's your initial reaction. It is also I for your intuition. It's what comes to your mind straight away. It's what your eyes kind of focus on straight away. Every time I look at a card for myself or for someone else, even if I see the Fool multiple times that day, every time I see it, there's something that I might look at more than I did in the last reading. So really focus on where your eyes are going, your eyes are darting and concentrating on. You know, does it make you feel a certain way? Does it make you think of something? Did a song pop in your head when you saw it? Did you think of a story that someone told you years ago that you thought of when you saw it? What colour is really standing out to you? I mean, the Fool, by the way, is one of my favourite cards. So when I look at her, I just think of someone who's carefree. I'm really focused on her backpack, which I've never actually noticed before. So she just gets up and goes. She travels very lightly. She's not very bothered about where she's going to end up, where she's going. She's more excited about the journey and how she's going to get there. How does the card overall in general look? And then how does facial expressions look? Facial expressions are such a massive thing. She seems really peaceful. She's kind of looking up into the air. She hasn't got a lot of like expression on her face because she's just at peace with what's to come and where she's going. She's not very bothered by much. Body language as well is really helpful. Her hands are like this, so she's kind of just like floating around, dashing about. She's got an iPod in her hand, so she's listening to music in the element, in her zone. Doesn't really care if she looks crazy dancing along the street. You got to look at what kind of day the character's having on your card. Does it look serious? Does it look happy, sad, stressful? What's the weather like where she is or he is? Is it stormy? Is it raining? Is it sunny? Is it snowing? Is it windy? How does that weather translate into emotions or feelings? Or, you know, what colour is that weather making the card? Bright yellow sunny card makes me think happy, good weather, good vibes, chilling. What situation are they in? What kind of location are they at? What building are they in or nearby, and what can that represent? Well, she's outside, so that makes me think of freedom. And I mean, that goes with clothes as well. What are they wearing? What do those symbolize? So she's got quite hippie-esque clothes on, so she's someone who might have just wandered out of a festival, or even she's going to a festival. She's got flowers in her hair, she's also got blue hair, so she doesn't really care how she looks. And this is where you need to start writing down all of those feelings and all of those intuitive and initial thoughts that you're having. So you're gonna need a notebook that you're gonna stick to when doing this. I've gone through quite a few over the years now, but this is my current one, which I love. I don't know if you're gonna see this very well, but I got this from TK Maxx. They always do really good notebooks and cute little journals and stuff. Psychic predictions. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this will really help your intuition skill set. You know, practice on that muscle in your brain that you might shut down. It's accepting and hearing yourself out and giving yourself the recognition that you deserve as an intuitive person and someone who's thinking of ideas. Like, trust in yourself and the power that you have as a tarot reader, even if you're a beginner. I know that a lot of people get freaked out by the word and they assume that it's a gift that you're given or it's something that you've never had and other people do, but that's not the case. Now, the R, going back to our acronym earlier, stands for, whether you like it or not, research definitions. And I still do this now. There is so much to learn about each card. People have so much to say, and there's so much history behind each card. There's just so many different things you'll learn. I'm learning new things about every card every single day. Have fun with it. I've never enjoyed research, really. I've never been someone who likes studying, but tarot really pulled me in and made me want to study and learn. And I mean, let yourself loose with all types of research and information. There is so much stuff out there that you can grab your little paws onto. Researching into it will take up a massive chunk of your day, or if you're doing this every week or so, then it will take a massive chunk up of your week, because you need to do some serious research into podcasts about tarot. A lot of them will talk about individual card meanings. Into your library, look for tarot books, or go on Amazon. There's so many tarot books out there. What do your tarot books say about this definition? YouTube videos, look at different YouTubers and what they're saying. There are Mind, Body, Spirit magazines, so magazines about tarot. There are some out there that exist. They might discuss the card that you're thinking about, or have a chat with some tarot readers or some witches. Go on Instagram. Oh my god, on Instagram, look at the hashtags for that card you're studying. If you type in like hashtag the Fool, it will probably come out with a bunch of stuff of other people talking about the Fool. Join Facebook communities, tarot reading communities. They are incredible for stuff like this. Go ask them what they think about that definition. Like, talk to people, have conversations with people. You can also look at artwork. Go explore some art that the card really makes you think of, or you believe it really, really looks like. Go study that. Who drew it? Why did they draw it? What was the reason for that? What was their motivation? There's a lot of forums online as well. There's threads of people discussing cards and combinations and like all sorts. Forums are amazing for stuff like this. Some people will have stuff to say about the cards that you would never have come up with yourself, and just having a general like debate and conversation, because I don't know if that's just a way I learn, but I take things in more when I'm communicating them and talking to people and bouncing off each other with them. I definitely take that more in than I do reading a book. For example, I was told by somebody that they were haunted by the Devil card for a few years. It would come up in all positions, it would pop up in their life all the time, and the very next day after she came out of her relationship was the day that the Devil card stopped haunting her and stopped appearing in her life. And now one of the first things I always think of when I see the Devil card is toxic relationships, toxic people that we associate ourselves with who are not healthy and looking out for us with the best interest. Twitter as well, you might not expect it, but if you were to search in the Twitter search bar, the Fool Tarot, just press enter and there'll be loads of people tweeting about the Fool, or obviously any card that you picked for your card of the day, of course. Everyone will be having discussions about it, and it's just interesting to really dive in and see, you know, the true definitions by book, and also the world's view of it as like modern day human beings. Now, if you want to get really, really deep, you can even home in on a very particular and individual part of that card and dive into maybe a documentary that focuses on that aspect of the card, or a song or a DVD, a movie that might be focused around that part of it or that aspect of it. So for example, if I was to take the Hermit, let's say I took the Hermit card. During your research, you might stumble into how people from around the world choose to isolate themselves and improve themselves as human beings in relation to that. So how do people self-improve, which is what the Hermit's all about, and what does that bring to human beings? You could really find a lot from that. Remember, you don't have to be researching the Hermit exactly. Like, if you've done some book definitions and you've got the general idea of what people feel about the Hermit, go into the actual aspect of the card. So I might want to watch a documentary on pilgrimage. That's a very similar concept of what the Hermit's all about, going on this long journey, on this long walk, reaching that place, reflecting over life, and coming back as like a new person and entering like the next phase of your life. And that's a very similar concept, and you can really understand it to a better level, and that itself makes you a better tarot reader because you have more connections with it, you have more information you can give people who might receive the Hermit card in their reading, you've got more to share. You know, tarot isn't going to do the talking for you, it's not magic. I mean, you could say it's a little bit magic, but the real magic is you. It's what you have to bring to the client and to the table when you're reading someone's card. You need information to give, you need to learn, which is why a lot of young tarot readers can't probably be as good as the older ones, because they've got a whole lot of life experience on their back. So moving on to my next tip, and this is where it gets really, really fun and really, really silly. For E, we're going to say enact it. Yes. You need to become the card, and I'm gonna sound mental, but hear me out. All research considered, now you know everything you know about what you've researched about this card, and you can see exactly what the card is, what it looks like, and it's giving you feelings and vibes anyway. I want you to take a look at the card that you've pulled and envision yourself taking one step forward and stepping into that card. Visualize your soul popping itself into that card and become inside the card, become within that card. So imagine what the world would sound like as soon as you enter that dimension. What would it smell like? What would it feel like? What would it feel like emotionally? So once again, the Fool, she's outside. I can imagine the smell of freshly cut grass. I can imagine birds tweeting. I would probably hear the music coming from her headphones because she's listening to music. I might hear the dog barking, feel the sun on my skin. And then what's the first thing the character's going to probably say to you? They're going to turn to you and they're going to say something. You've just walked out in front of their face. Will they greet you kindly? Will they tell you to go away? Will they be so distracted that they're not even going to see you there, which is what I imagine the Fool doing? Or will they very calmly greet you? When I look at the Fool, I think that she's probably so distracted by what she's doing, and she's so in the moment that she's not even going to realize that I'm there. Whereas, let's look at the Chariot. She's charging ahead on her bike, full speed, and if I get in the way, she's probably going to be like, get out the way, places to be, things to do, I need to get going, move. But then we got to think, let's say the Five of Wands comes up for me. They are fighting, they are conflicting with each other, they are in a debate, they are having a bit of a tiff. So they're probably either going to A, take one look at me and then fight with me, or B, continue in their moment of rage or like fuss, and I'm going to have to kind of tell them to quit, or like, maybe we should step back. Because this is what I always tell people when they get this card a lot in their reading. I'm like, someone needs to step up. Someone needs to step back and step up and tell the rest of these people what to do, because no one's in charge, no one's leading, and you're not getting anywhere. It's not very productive. So that leads me to, you know, really imagining what you would say to them. What kind of conversation would you have with them? The Seven of Cups, she's so distracted by what's going on around her and very tempted by all of the things she's got in front of her. I might want to tap her on the shoulder and be like, hey, look, have you considered that maybe not all of these cups are for you, or maybe you should reconsider some of the things that you think look great, because actually some of them have snakes in and negative things in, and even though that one has a rose in, there's also thorns that come with roses, so not everything is as great and glamorous as it seems, maybe. I don't know. Some of you can really meditate with that idea as well. Just lay the card out in front of you and meditate and feel yourself in that situation and try and get some really like personal experience with it. That would be wicked. I'm not very good at meditation personally, but I can imagine that being a really beneficial practice. A really fun way to truly get inside of the card is to dress as the character that you're studying that day. Five of Cups, for instance, she's the card of loss and grief, and a lot of people do see her as the funeral card. Dress in all black. Dress as someone who might be feeling moments of grief and sadness and loss. It's a bit of a weird practice, but honestly, it's so much fun. I know the Ace of Pentacles isn't a person, but it is about, you know, potential money-making situations. So dress rich, put on your designer clothes, put on clothes that make you feel fancy. Going back to my lovely Fool card that I picked for myself, I mean, for her, I might want to wake up and wear my tie-dye shirt, I might want to put my hair up, bash some things together that don't typically go well and might clash because she wouldn't care. Not wear shoes that day, or if I did wear shoes, maybe wear something that's really light. Let's say I got a fun one for this one actually, would be the Nine of Pentacles, because she's about female independence and abundance and she basks in her luxury. But if we look at the traditional, Nine of Pentacles is pretty damn glamorous. Look at that. She is just loving life. She is there to just enjoy herself and feel that leisure time and be in comfy clothes too. So to really capture both sides of this card, you could wear maybe your fancy bathrobe that you have. Like I can imagine like a kimono working really well for this. So like a golden kimono, like one of those Japanese kind of silk ones. So you've got that leisure, that comfort, but also like glamorous and like I'm successful and rich. Like, now you can truly be silly with this, especially if you're learning with a friend or you live with someone who knows what you're doing, like they know you're doing this whole method. You can actually act like them, like do little funny silly things throughout the day as your hermit moment or your justice moment. Talk like they would, or talk like the card would. Speak like them, say something they would. Try and get into some role play of some kind. Maybe have some funny conversations with your other half, or even with yourself. You can talk to yourself. I do it all the time, it's fine. Implement the essence of that card into your day. Spend your day as he would spend his. So the Magician is about manifestation. It's making things happen, making dreams happen, wishes happen, goals happen. It's making things work. To be like the Magician, you will probably need to write a to-do list at the beginning of the day of all the things that you want to manifest and get done in that day. Think like the Magician. The Magician would have this that they want to achieve and have and hold and touch and see at the end of the day. And all of those things that you want to bring into reality could be things like you want to bake a cake by the end of the day, you want to have some flowers planted by the end of the day, you need to bring a newspaper to your grandma by the end of the day. Setting your intentions for the day is making magic happen. That is thinking like the Magician. And therefore you are implementing him into your day. And that's technically a bit of role play. You're thinking like the Magician. You're becoming part of what the Magician is all about, the true essence of it. Now, how would she spend her day? She would never know at the beginning of it because she hasn't made any plans. She's just gonna wing it. So to really step into the essence of her, I might go about my day a little bit more erratically than normal. I might not want to have everything planned or written down. Do something unexpected. I might make myself sign up to a yoga class that day when I really don't want to because I'm scared into thinking like how it might go or how I might be. And I mean, you don't have to go crazy with this. They can be little things as well. You might also decide to go on a walk without having a destination in mind. That's very Fool energy. Say you pick the Lover's card. The Lover's card is always about a choice. It's a decision that leads to a choice being made which really tests you because it asks you to think about what truly nourishes your soul. You might want to consciously pick a healthy dinner over a naughty one. because you want to make decisions today that will benefit you in the long term. You might even want to do some really deep thinking and ask yourself whether your current career is something that really makes you happy. Choose to hang out with someone that day who is really good for you. So next up, not forgetting about my lovely acronym here, is A. And A stands for acknowledge the details. After all, the card did come out at you today for a reason, believe it or not. The card chose you, and it wants you to analyze it and observe it. As you go on about your day with this card in mind, you also need to step back and observe parts of your day that link to the card. That is the reason the card came out. It's trying to push forward a part of your day that you need to be conscious of. Let's take the Tower card, the big old scary Tower card that no one wants to talk about. I'm going to talk about it today. Well, you would look for moments of release and where structures have been cracked, and what was is no longer, and what has been broken down, what no longer exists as it used to. The Tower is just ripping things from its seams, ripping things from its roots. So in what parts of your day did that happen? The Tower moment could be you breaking your favorite coffee mug. It could be you staining a piece of art that you've been working on for weeks. You could be hit with a very unexpected phone bill in the post. So there's going to be a reason why that's come forward, as well as because it will be relatable with you today. The reason the Tower might come forward is to say to me today, like, hey, be careful, you might drop something, you might break something, or Ellie, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, because when shit hits the fan, when, you know, a big old phone bill comes in the post, you're not going to have any backup or savings in your savings account. And the Tower card always says, if you were to be ripped from your roots, if you were to be shoved out of your flat that you live in, if you were to be shoved out of the job that you're in, what would you fall into? What would you fall onto? Where would you go? Do you have a plan B? And similarly, with the Ten of Wands, if I had a big to-do list that day, well, the Ten of Wands also says she's got so many wands she's dealing with at one time, she's probably not going to get to the place that she wants to get to because she can't actually see where she's going. She's got so many wands, they're covering her face. So she's probably going to either end up in the wrong place or drop half of them along the way. So this could be telling me that today, try not to be tempted to write a big to-do list. Try and split that to-do list in half. Get 5 things done today and then 5 things done tomorrow instead. And quality over quantity. You want to get the to-do list done properly and not rushed and half-heartedly. Okay, so the next stage, and honestly at this point, these are all sounding crazier and crazier as I go. This one's really fun though, I promise. So D stands for date them. I sound crazy, but you need to start thinking of your cards as personality types. It's so important. Now you really need to get into their head, into their brain. Organize a date for you and this person. So anyone who has organized a date with someone before, even if it's a play date between you and a best friend, you really have to get into the headspace of what that person's like, what they're into, what they want to do, what do they not want to do, what do you want to avoid, where do they like going, where do they not, are they an anxious person, do they like crowds, do they like loud music, do they like being on the open, or do they like staying in buildings? Are they someone who wants to go for an all-day date or an all-night date? Would they rather just go out in the evening, or are they more of a morning person? I want to say the Empress to give you a good example for this. One of the most beautiful cards there are. If we take the Empress from both decks, look at this. They're very, very similar in both of these cards. We can sit and organise a date for her pretty easily because, for one, she's outside. She is a card about beauty and things coming to her. She likes the kind of like pretty things in life, but she is also motherly energy. So even though I'm making her sound like a bit of a princess, a bit of a diva, she's also like nurturing. So she's very loving. She's not cold or anything like that. What would the Empress want to do? So maybe write the date down on a bit of paper. Use your journal book we spoke about earlier. Don't forget to use that for whatever you want. I would imagine that the Empress would love the sunshine and nothing too high energy. The most the Empress does in her true element is just enjoy herself. So the most she would do is probably pamper herself if someone else isn't doing it for her. Maybe the date would start off in the afternoon, a picnic in the park with some wine and some grapes. We move off into the evening with an evening at the local spa, and then finish the day at home watching a movie rather than, you know, going off to the cinema. I feel like she's also a very homely person, so she'll probably want to maybe invite you back to hers. And Empress kind of energy makes me think she's quite like sexy and seductive and stuff too, so she might even want to invite you back to her house afterwards, and you know what I'm saying. Now, I gave her quite a long date because I feel as though she's pretty chill. She's happy to relax with you. But let's look at an example such as the 8 of Wands maybe. So we know the 8 of Wands from our research earlier. It's a very quick, fast-paced movement card of travel, of going places, adrenaline. It's getting something done. So 8 of Wands, unlike the Empress, craves adrenaline. I want to book a date for this person which is fun, crazy, erratic, quite maybe short, but what we do together is really high energy, fun and buzzed. And also, because it's a travel card, we might even want to cleverly combine those two things together and maybe organize go-karting for my 8 of Wands date. There is a little motorbike at the bottom of this, and lots of people will say the 8 of Wands is traveling, so go-karting's perfect. Tarot readers are very creative people. We have to work out somebody's story from a massive array of pictures. We have to connect the dots, work out what's going on here. You've got to creatively flow those cards together to make sense. Like, have you ever watched a tarot reader look at all these cards on the table and go blah 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 blah, and you're like, how did she come to that conclusion? You have to really practice that muscle. It takes a while, but you get there. So being able to translate well leads me on to the next one, and that is T. And T stands for tune. So this is all about music, and like I was saying earlier, sometimes music's going to naturally play in your head, or you're going to hear a song when you see a card or think of a song, or like read a definition somewhere, and then like suddenly a song will play in your head and you're like, ah. And this is mainly for the people who are that way inclined. I'm not massively into this method, but for some people I can imagine it really helping, because it triggers a thought in their head that makes them remember all these definitions about the card that is so important. And some good examples of that is strength, for example, courage and willpower and mind over matter, just grabbing life by its horns. She has her hands firmly on the lion, and it's about using firmness but also fairness to control an animal. That's how you tame one. That's how you get in control of life. It's having that balance between what is and what exists, and the willpower to make it work in the best way it possibly can, the way you want it to, and the way you have the ability to change it. So that immediately makes me think of Raw by Katy Perry. Is it Raw? And if I was to really dig into that song, you'll start seeing keywords that remind you of the card. Stuff like, you held me down, but I got up, fighter, dancing through the fire, because I am a champion, all of that kind of stuff. That's the sort of thing the strength card, the lady in it would say. She decides to conquer on, and she uses her willpower to push on through. And the important part about connecting these cards to songs as well is it takes away the traditional sense of the card. A lot of the cards are going to be very old-fashioned. They wear old-fashioned things, they're in old-fashioned situations and scenarios, and a lot of the language that tarot uses in books and stuff is quite old school things. So you want to start relating these cards to modern day music and to stuff that makes sense to you as a person in this day and age. Even with some of the quite old-fashioned ones, you know, the Hierophant maybe. This card makes me think of Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode, I think that's how you pronounce it. There's a lot of language in that song that is very Hierophant. And next up on my rather long ass learning method is A. We're almost finished, I promise. A is archives. So this is really digging deep into the history and origin of the card, where the card started off, what the card meant back in the day, why it was drawn, why it was implemented into tarot. It helps you get where the story started. It helps you understand some things as well, like the fashion that they're wearing in the cards, particularly the traditional Rider-Waite cards, which I've told you guys all to start with because I think it's a very good starting point. A lot of these clothing's very old-fashioned, like How are you supposed to know what some of this represents and means? What is that person wearing in the Three of Pentacles? Also, problems are different now to what existed then. Scenarios are different. Situations and buildings are different. How has that formed over years and how has that changed? So how can you make that relevant to a reading that you're doing now for someone living in 2020? A good example for this is the Two of Pentacles, actually. So this is a card that you might not initially see as someone who's supposed to look kind of silly and goofy. Do we know if he's doing well at balancing these two coins, at performing what I call the dance of life when I see the Two of Pentacles? But when you look into what these clothes are, this is a clown, this is a juggler, this is a performer. Back in the day, these people were supposed to look silly and a bit goofy. He's wearing red tights as well. It's telling you that it's okay to look a bit silly when you're dealing with stuff that you might not have a huge amount of experience with. He's also got a funny long hat on. This is actually a style of hat which looks a bit like a chef hat or something, but it's a style of hat people would wear when doing something that might make you quite hot and sweaty. It was a way to make them sweat less. So it's also saying he's doing a lot of action. There's a lot of movement here. He's sweating, he's struggling a bit, but it's okay to look silly and goofy because things are wavy and rocky and he's got a lot on his plate. Another really good example of this, if we go back to the Lovers card again, the story of Adam and Eve will give us a much better understanding of how the Lovers card works, because that's the story it's showing you there. It's showing Adam and Eve and the apple there. There's even the serpent there going up to one of the apples. So we know that there's going to be some sort of choice here, and that's what the Lovers card is. It's a choice that's going to need to be made. Some choices that we might actually not be thinking straight about, or there might be some part of the choice which we could be swayed from because we want to do the quick route out or the tastier route out. So now you know that the Lovers is all about choosing what's best for you and what's right for you. Next up is very similar to our tune step, but this is R, and it stands for relationships. So quite similarly to connecting your card of the day with a song that you know or it reminds you of, you want to connect the card to somebody you know, a relationship that you have in life. And if you really struggle with this, you can move on to like characters on TV or in film, or even a book you once read, I don't know, maybe even like a YouTuber or something, because it will really help you describe that card to somebody who you're reading for. If someone wants to know who will they fall in love with next, you know, and you get the Chariot and that reminds you of your sister, you can develop a person out of that card now, and you can quite easily go through the traits of that person and what that person's like as a real human being and not just an illustration on a card. I mean, whether she likes it or not, the Justice card will always remind me of my mum, because it's always about being fair. So it's seeing the situation for what it truly is and giving people exactly what they deserve, knowing what's wrong and right. But on the more negative side, the Justice can sometimes be quite indecisive in that sense, because it's weighing up pros and cons. So someone who's stuck in Justice energy might be constantly like analysing what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing, and therefore they're not actually making a decision. And that's very much like my mum as well. She's that typical Libra, wants everyone to have a fair deal and then ends up just like stuck. But Justice has a little bit more kind of brutal energy with it, so maybe my mum needs a bit more of that brutal sword that the Justice sits with too. But if we look into TV and film and like fictional characters, the Four of Pentacles might remind me of someone like the Grinch, who's quite greedy and keeps himself to himself. He's not giving in any way. He has what he has and doesn't want to develop on it. Like, his past has scarred him into thinking that he shouldn't let go of things because people can't be trusted, or no good comes from being a nice person. And it's that kind of grumpy attitude the Four of Pentacles gives me, like, I'm comfortable as I am and therefore that's all that matters. So that's like kind of grinchy energy. So if you can't make the person come to life in your head, then you can connect them to actual figures in your life. So now moving on to O, we're so nearly done, and this is a very simple and straightforward one. O stands for organize, and all you basically want to do, you can do this physically with your whole deck if you have the time to, or you can just look it up online or in a book or whatever. You need to organize the tarot deck from 1 to 78 in the order that it was supposed to be in. You guys need to remember that tarot is not just a random bunch of 78 cards. It's a story, it's a journey. The tarot is the Fool's journey. That's why she is card number 0. She is about to embark on the whole of the tarot story, and then it finally ends in the lovely World card. That's her completing the story. That's why she is a circle. It's the circle kind of coming to an end. It's the finish of something. That's why you would see in definitions for the world, it's about completion, completing a project. But it's also why you see this card representing feeling wise and content with everything, because she's gone through so much. She has a lot of experience on her back. So it's their journey from the start to the end, and all of the cards in between are the different things that the Fool comes across and develops and learns and experiences. So what you need to do with the card that you picked out today is find out whereabouts that sits in the journey of the Fool. How far in the deck is it? Is it at the beginning? Does she have a lot of experience? Is it at the end? So after the Death card comes Temperance, which I will try and find. So now the Temperance is about exploring with something new, adding together, combining elements together that maybe she hadn't before and she hasn't experimented with before. She's got 2 cups in her hand, and one of those cups is what exists and what she already has in her life and what is current, you know, the parts of her that she took with her to this next phase of her life, and the other cup is what she wants to bring in, what she wants to combine with the other stuff, how she can take what she has with what she wants and make that happen, make that work. Another really good example of how organizing the cards will really help you get to know the cards a bit better is the Tower is right before the Star moment. So as we know, the Tower moment is all about destruction, breaking down, things kind of crumbling down, structure being zapped. And sure, that was pretty maybe scary at the time and unexpected and a bit worrying for the future. But straight afterwards, we've got the Star. Now she's being stripped back to vulnerability again. She's about, when the Tower gets broken down by the lightning, you're left very bare and stripped back. But she's at peace with the chaos that was in her life. The Star card is all about healing energy. It's about being at peace with her whole life journey. So if you remember the previous card, which is the Tower, she's just come from the Tower moment, which was really destructive, but she's dealing with it, she's healing, and she's coming out on top. She's realizing what matters enough to build again and what truly matters when shit hits the fan, you know? So organizing it will really help you, and you can work out what energy still might exist from the previous card and what energy it's moving into. A really little cheeky top tip I will say also, if you're learning card reversals, you want to look at the card that comes before the card you're reading when it comes to the sequence of all of the tarot together, because it might be saying that there's still energy from the card before blocking the next card coming that you're reading. So a reversed card is usually there's like a blockage in some way of that card. It's that card on its head, so there's a blockage in some way, usually meaning the card before still has to play its part a bit. There's something in that energy which is stopping you from being able to live the full upright energy of the next card, which is a really interesting tip, quite off on a tangent, and I told myself I wouldn't do that. So we're on the last step now, and the last letter is T, and T represents talents. And this is a really nice way to end the practice because it's something that you can dive into after the day and within the next few weeks if you want to. You can do this with cards that you feel particularly drawn to or strong about, or ones that you really enjoyed learning. And talents is basically using your own skills, using your own talents and what you can bring as an individual to the table to creatively produce something from the essence of the card. And everyone is going to have their own talent, and no one is going to tell me they don't have a talent. You can think of anything. If you write, you can do a poem about a card. If you draw, you can draw the card, but your own version of it. Maybe you can paint the card. You can print the card out without any color on it, and you can color it in. If you feel like you've got no talent, hey, you can color in. You can write a short story about the card, write a song about the card, you can sing about the card, make your own little song up. Take some photographs of things that remind you of the card. So go out with your camera if you're a photographer, make some nail art that makes you think of the card. If you can do makeup, do a makeup look inspired by the card. That's going to really help you study it and pick up things like colors that you didn't notice before. And something that I've learned along the way of studying tarot is a really big appreciation for art that I never had before. I always found it funny how art teachers would build all these like crazy connotations over one bit of art, and how studying art always seemed funny to me because like artists can make this massive deal out of like a very simple image, and I always thought that was so odd and weird, and like, where are you pulling all this stuff out from, and how do they come to that conclusion when it comes to the image? But studying tarot made me appreciate art again, like, or for the first time even, like properly appreciate it, like properly understand it. Nothing is in tarot and nothing is in art by accident. It's all deliberate, it's all on purpose. You've got to study a card for exactly what it is. Why were the dark colours used for the moon, for instance? Why is the moon so big? Why is it so bright? It's drawing me towards it for a reason. Intuition. That's the moon card. All about intuition. And I'm being drawn towards looking at the moon, and the moon is a symbol of intuition. Why do people have their backs to me? Like, you've got to ask every single question possible, because nothing was just put there willy-nilly. It was well thought out, particularly the traditional tarot, like everything was well considered. And not only that, you've got to ask yourself why something isn't there. There is no ground. Why did they not draw a ground there? Well, she's levitating up in the sky. It's almost like she's taking on another form. She's becoming like a superhuman of some sort. She's finished her journey of human life. Maybe she's becoming one with the stars. I don't know. Let your imagination run wild. Share your story. Let me know if this video has helped you and in what way. Thank you. I'm on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram if you want to see me outside of YouTube. I also have a tarot reading Facebook page now, so if you want to book a tarot reading with me, links down there to do that. This was a big ass video for me to film, but thank you very much for your patience and watching, and have fun. Tarot is so much fun. The cards just want to enjoy you as much as you want to enjoy them. That sounds weird. Loads of love from my house to yours. Thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it and you want to see more stuff like this, because that really helps my video get pushed out into the big wide world of everybody making videos on the planet. Bye bye.